What's up, world? Not that. How about, isn't today beautiful? How about, I hope all of your dreams come true. And we'll put like a rainbow in here in post, like when I'm doing this movement. All of your dreams come true. I think we got it. For today's video, you all have had so many questions online across social platforms on Instagram and TikTok and the app formerly known as Twitter and right here on YouTube. So I thought I would answer as many questions as I possibly could. So let's go. It is so good to see you too, even though I can't really see you. So it's so good to hear from you. My favorite lyric is probably, from our album Living Room. The Green in the Town, that whole narrative of that song, talking about the Giants, I think that is probably my favorite series of lyrics in any AJR song at the moment, but it changes all the time. Over the summer, the song Inertia, those lyrics were my favorite, talking about saving the planet, but today I've got plans. You know, it happens. I am doing okay. It's been an interesting couple of years, and I've learned a lot about myself and about other people and about the world, and I would say a solid 7 out of 100. No, out of 10. Being climate conscious with food is really important. I am mostly vegetarian. I eat a lot of vegetarian foods, but sometimes I do eat red meat. When I was younger, I was diagnosed with anemia, and I was very close to having to go into the hospital. The main thing that the doctor said is that once or twice a week or so, I should be eating some red meat. It's very high in iron. But I do eat a lot of tofu, as you probably know. I eat a lot of vegetables. The best thing you can do when shopping to focus on climate is to look at produce that's made locally. I go to the farmer's market, and all of those ingredients come from local places. It's also really nice to support local businesses. That's something that I'm passionate about as well. At our shows, we've done a lot to decrease our impact on the environment. We partner with an organization called Reverb. You might have seen them on other tours. They were out with Harry Styles and Billie Eilish, a bunch of places, and they worked to decrease our emissions on tour. Everything from food to power, advancing with the venues, the way we do transportation, things like that. And that's one piece of it. And the other piece of it is a program that you all got engaged in at a really deep level. My organization called Planet Reimagined did a massive study to understand how people can take more action while going to concerts. And this is in terms of civic and political advocacy. Local policies are the things that we realize people care a lot about, and that's one of the things we proved during our tour. So as we move forward and do more shows, there are going to be more opportunities for people to get involved. Absolutely, there are so many books out there on climate. Bill Gates did a really interesting book. This guy, Michael Mann, he's a professor, did a really interesting book. I think there are so many ways to get engaged in climate. If you're interested in policy, Leah Stokes is an amazing writer on this. There's also Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, who has done a couple of kind of compendium books where she's highlighted a bunch of different people who have written on climate and how we can imagine an incredible future for ourselves. But if you're passionate about climate, I would say try and find something more specific within the movement. You could be passionate about healthcare. You could be passionate about food. And finding books that focus on those issues will allow you to be a lot more educated when you're talking in a climate space. So if you can become a food expert and how that impacts the climate and what we can do around agriculture to help improve the impact of climate change, that's what I would suggest. So many people were saying that I came to their campus and that they didn't even know. This spring, I'm doing a bunch of different campus visits, but if you do want me to come out to your campus, I do talks, I do Q&As. If you want this, please tell your school, have them reach out. I love doing this. So please let me know. Reach out, let's make it happen. I am so glad that we have this channel because you're actually going to get to know me and realize that I am absolutely none of these things. But thanks for trying. I gotta be honest, I didn't know until this moment that Jurassic Park was a book. I literally thought it was only movies, so maybe that answers your question. Communication is like the most important thing. If you're studying something at a really deep level, the only way that you're going to be sure that you really understand it is if you can explain it to somebody else really simply. So that's an exercise I would suggest for anybody, whether you're studying for a test or writing a paper or building a project. If you can think about it yourself, that's great. But if you can explain it to somebody else who's not an expert in this, that's mastery. That's really what mastery is. I really love cooking. Most of the things, I just kind of make it up as I go along. Some of you might have seen the videos I made on the road. I had this purple kind of hot pot thing, and I would just take whatever ingredients I could in whatever city we were in when we were on tour, and I would just throw them in and figure out a recipe. So no, I don't follow instructions unless I have to. But, you know, that's how I live most of my life. I don't know. I mean, the like stupid answer that I give in interviews is I don't sleep, but I sleep enough, I guess. But I don't know, if I find a book that I'm really excited about, I'll just go and read it. Sorry, that's a terrible answer. Yeah, it was crazy. I would absolutely do it again. Like 100% I would do it again. I would spend a handful of months on tour, then I would go to England for a while to work on my PhD, then I would come back and do more time on tour. I was doing Zoom and Skype before it was the cool thing to do for everybody during the pandemic. Oh my God, there's so many things I am bad at. I'm really, really bad at folding laundry. Like, so bad at it. I am really bad at most sports. I'm really terrible. Football, like I can't throw a good spiral at all. I've tried, don't worry. I've tried, and it was very embarrassing. I didn't learn how to drive until I was like 28 years old. And it was really important to my dad that I learned how to drive. So learned how to drive for him, and I just got my first car. Growing up in New York City, you never needed to know how to drive and you never needed a car. But I just got a car for the first time. And yes, I did get an electric car because I knew that was going to be some questions in the comments. I did get a fully electric car. Since I grew up in Manhattan, I saw a bunch of theater. And so theater was just in my bloodstream. It's something that I love listening to, I like playing, and I will never stop. No matter how much you tell me to stop in the comments, I am never gonna stop listening to theater. So thank you for being on my side. And your mom too. This is such a nice comment. I love Australia. We've been there a couple times on tour. And honestly, it's what I love doing too. One of the reasons why I teach in an international affairs program is because I hear from so many different people from all over the world their experiences with climate, with politics, international affairs, all of these different areas. One thing that really resonates with me is when you can bring people together in a room and you can have productive conversations, even though people might have different viewpoints. They can disagree, but then they can go have lunch together. That's so much fun for me. And being in college spaces where I do these kinds of lectures, I see that a lot. And I have a lot of hope for the future because people can disagree about things, but then still be very civil towards each other. We started out street performing when we were kids. Performing on the street is one of the hardest things to do. The audience is not there for you. They're on their way to work or school. They're just trying to go about their day. And your job is to convince them to stop and give you their time and give you their money. One of the best pieces of advice is to figure out creative versions of cover songs that they might already know, and you can interpret them in a different way, perform them in a slightly different way, that's much more likely to get them to stop than if you are performing over and over again a bunch of new original stuff. The type of transportation I am most in favor of is public transportation. There are so many other countries around the world that have done an amazing job with public transportation. High-speed rail is the #1 thing we should be investing in this country when it comes to transportation. For the people who can't live in a city, I would say an electric car is the best way to think about reducing emissions. However, and there's a big however, transmission in this country and electricity in this country are not 100% ready yet. There has been a lot of investment in new infrastructure, new charging infrastructure, and we need to make sure those charging stations are in all different types of communities, from high income to all the way to low income communities. We need to make sure the infrastructure is there before people buy the electric cars, so the electric cars end up being actually useful. And the second piece of it is electricity production. When you go and you're charging your car, you need to make sure that the electricity that's being used to charge it is coming from a renewable source, wind, solar, geothermal, etc., and not from coal or oil or gas. Now, that's not up to you when you're going to charge your car. We need to make sure we're creating more incentives for wind and solar to be on the grid. We also need a new grid, but maybe I'll do a whole video about that because the grid is a complete mess. It's very antiquated. We need a lot of new transmission in the United States. So this was a very long-winded way of saying it's not a perfect solution, but it is a really good solution for the moment, assuming we're making sure that people are protected as we're producing electric cars. Yes. See you next time.